Hey everyone, Ryan Young, Kama Jiu-Jitsu. I hope you're doing well. So what I wanted to do was just cover some questions. I've got some questions that everybody sends in, not everybody, but a lot of you send in, and I really appreciate that you do that because it gives me some idea of what you're looking at and how I can help you. All right, so this one actually comes from one of our students. His name is Mike. I can say his name because we have like 5 Mikes. So his message is this: Hey Ryan, I've got an idea for a YouTube video. Does training for and competing in jiu-jitsu tournaments ruin your reflexes for self-defense? So he went over a bunch of other stuff, but I'll kind of go over right now. So here's the thing, yes and no. So for a lot of what we do in jiu-jitsu, there are common things. A lot of the grappling, it doesn't really matter if you're competing or if you're in a self-defense situation, if you have to get into a grappling situation in a fight. So in that way, there's a lot of commonality. That's why I can say in another video that I've done earlier that wrestlers do very well in a self-defense situation because they'll often just shoot in and take somebody down, get it to the ground, and finish a person there. So that's why a sport wrestler, folk style wrestler, Greco-Roman, whatever, they can do very well in a situation. Just throw them on the ground. Same with a judo guy. Same with a Russian sambo guy. Anybody who can grapple can do a lot better in a self-defense situation than a person who's not trained. Now, if I'm comparing 2 arts, the traditional Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or the sport BJJ, then you're now comparing 2 different similar grappling arts. Now, if you do competitive Jiu-Jitsu, so Mike's question was, will it ruin your reflexes or will it create a situation where you could be in a bad place in a self-defense situation? And for that, I have to say the answer is yes, potentially. Because if you do competitive Jiu-Jitsu, you can grapple and you will do well, especially if you're good. On the other hand, what if you're fighting somebody and it calls for quick reflexes that maybe with something that you don't do? So for example, in my last video on how you can get really good, the best way to learn Jiu-Jitsu, and I went over about how self-defense is often done in the first 6 months of somebody's training. But let's say they've been training 10 or 15 years and they never revisit it because that's the beginner class and they don't want to go beginner classes because they're advanced now. But those, Dave Kama would contend, and we just talked about it this weekend, he was just here, and RICKSON contends that those are the most important concepts to go over when you're training in jiu-jitsu. Because those self-defense concepts, the better you get at them, believe it or not, the better your ground game will work too. And I think that's RICKSON's main contention for creating the JJGF, was that the self-defense aspect was lost. And you can hear him speaking in a number of interviews, him being critical of competition jiu-jitsu and how they've lost a lot of what he feels true jiu-jitsu is. And when you really think about it, if you're very good at getting out of headlocks, and you get out of headlocks whether they come from behind, whether they come from the side, whether they come from the front, whether they've got you in a guillotine, whether they've got you in a doubled over headlock, and on the ground, right, the kesa, or even the kesa which has the arm, even without the arm, and somebody grabs your neck and throws you down, right? If you know how to do those things, your body can move in a way that actually works for grappling. And it'll move in a way that a sport person will not move because it's not in their habit to move that way. Also, protecting your face. Somebody who does sport BJJ never really has to protect their face. So when somebody passes your guard to the cross side, they're not protecting in this way when they're on the ground because they're not really expecting a knee to their face or a fist to their face. Whereas if you do it with a self-defense mindset, you're practicing for that type of situation. Will practicing constantly for competition negatively affect your self-defense training? Yes, because I'll give you an example, slamming, right? I was just watching a video with a gentleman, well-known black belt, and he was talking about how he was training at a Gracie Open tournament, so one that was put together by Jorge and Horace Gracie, and how his instructor had them training for competitions. He was training for competition, but he went in an unlimited time match with a particular person out of the Gracie Academy, I think it was, and he got picked up. He was playing guard. He got picked up and he got launched and ended up fracturing some vertebrae in his neck. That's not a situation I'd ever want to be in But if you compete a lot, you cannot be slammed. It's illegal to slam you. So, and if they do slam you, it's probably incidental, accidental. It's not something that's intentional. It could be just one of those where somebody picks you up and as they're slamming you, maybe halfway through it, realize, oh crap, it's illegal, and then so maybe don't hit you, versus somebody who intentionally launches you and throws you on your neck. So by training for a lot of competition, that will happen. In fact, there was a match that Ryron Gracie did when he was new black belt. He had gone up against a black belt trained by another family member, and it was those tournament rules where slams were allowed, and his opponent was a very competent and competitive competition tournament guy. Even though the school that he came out of was generally a fight school, they did a lot of tournaments where he knew he wasn't gonna get slammed. Well, it turns out Ryron stood up in guard and picked him up off of the ground. He didn't release his legs so that he could get back on his feet with Ryron. Ryron just slammed him and knocked him unconscious. Someone that trains with the self-defense mindset will have that thought always in their mind. If I stand up, I can slam this guy. But when you're training, you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, he's a training partner, I'm not gonna slam him. But in a competitive environment or in a fight, you're gonna have that instinct in you to slam. Whereas somebody who competes a lot, if they pick somebody up, they're not necessarily gonna have that competitive instinct to slam. Now, I get a lot of people tell me, no, Ryan, you're stupid, you don't know, these guys can do, they can do that if they want to. Well, yeah, I know they can if they want to, but the difference is, are they trained to do it? That's the thing. You're only as good as your training, right? And if your training allows you to let yourself get picked up, you're gonna allow yourself to get picked up in a fight as well. So, long answer to his question, yes, I do think that you need to kind of choose, but if I were to choose one, I would choose to train with a self-defense mindset over a competition mindset, because what's the worst that could happen? I may not get up to the top levels of competition, but then again, I might. Because, there are some guys that are some old school black belts that have been out of competition maybe 10 years, 15, 20 years, maybe, I don't know. And they enter later on and they do very well. And there are some old school black belts where today's younger guys, younger generation of competitors will train with, and they still can't beat them, even though they're the old guys. If I have to choose, like I said, I would choose the self-defense side, because even if I don't do well in competition, I still will do well in a situation where I'll have a better chance of doing well in a situation where I need to protect myself. On the other hand, I could do super well in competition, forego the training of the self-defense, and I could end up being in big trouble.